Hello, everyone. So, as you all may or should be aware, Nancy Pelosi was just reelected as Speaker of the House. She retained her position, and it's a very unfortunate day for any true lefty that wants any kind of change. And I'll try to explain why in this video, and as well kind of touch on the current split that has overtaken the left and a lot of the infighting that's going on. So Nancy Pelosi was elected. The tally was 216 to 209. And so only 5 Democrats defected, being Jared Golden. He voted for Tammy Duckworth, who's a senator. Connor Lamb voted for Hakeem Jeffries. Fuck that guy. Hakeem Jeffries, that is. And we'll get into him in a second. Mikey Sherrill voted present. Alyssa Slotkin voted present. And Abigail Spanberger also voted present. So the 3 votes that kind of put her over the top were from Cori Bush, AOC, and Barbara Lee, which is interesting because they both, all 3 of them, when their names were called, didn't say anything at first. So a lot of people, they thought that they had like abstained or, didn't vote or withheld their vote for Nancy Pelosi. But when everything was said and done, they did end up casting the vote for Nancy Pelosi, which ultimately won her the speakership. Now, as we all knew coming into this, the squad, quote unquote, the progressives in Congress, they did have power to leverage to withhold the vote and get some kind of concessions out of this up front. We knew this going in, but they were content with their backroom deals and their talks behind the doors and under the tables where no one could see them. And so they proceeded as such. Recently, as in like a day or two ago, progressives, AOC, and the like were championing the PAYGO victory. If you guys don't know what PAYGO is, it was basically, as Justin Jackson summarized it, non-existent under the Republican majority. It adds $1 trillion to the debt with tax cut. But in 2018, Nancy Pelosi self-imposed PAYGO to prevent progressive legislation. Okay? So it really handicapped the progressives. And now in 2021, 3 years later, the progressives leveraged speakership to get PAYGO exemption. So essentially a waiver on PAYGO. And they're really championing that and calling it a victory when it is. But first of all, it shouldn't have existed in the first place. It was imposed by Nancy Pelosi, your enemy, I should add. And it doesn't go anywhere far enough, but we'll get into that in a second. So Nancy Pelosi retains her speakership, and all hell is breaking loose on social media. Force the vote has failed, and thus chaos has ensued. So I want to read to you a quote really quickly from Mike McCarthy, Senate House Minority Leader. So he says, the least productive Congress in nearly 50 years, referring to Pelosi. And he says that there was a clear message in last November's elections when Republicans gained seats by defeating a dozen Democratic incumbents. It was a wake-up call. The question I ask of this majority, were you listening? And now, of course, the Democrats strongly dispute that. They would say, no, it's you guys that are stopping all the legislation. But when it is in fact both of you. So cut the bullshit, okay? So what this has done essentially is really shine a bright light on all the people who were elected to do quite the opposite of what was just done, which was vote for Nancy Pelosi without seemingly getting anything. Now, I say that seemingly because they did get something. They did. They've been talking behind the scenes, and as AOC and the rest would call it, we've been talking behind closed doors and getting things. But do I think that they got anything that we should just go crazy about? No. Is it anything far enough? No. This much we know. Now, as far as the infighting goes with the left, It has to stop. It has to stop now. Okay? Force the vote failed. The dust has started to settle. We need to realign ourselves and realize the bigger fight. Okay? This is bigger than all of us. We're trying to get healthcare, free healthcare for everybody. Okay? The infighting isn't going to help us do it. In fact, it's going to keep us from doing it. Okay? So what we have is decent people, allies, maligning other allies, maligning each other, and saying that, oh, this person is a corporatist because they don't agree with us. Or, oh, this person is, a bad person because they lobbied for force to vote and they use harsh language. None of that is true. None of that is, you need to be able to distinguish your allies from your enemies. And that is a problem within the left and also a problem within the elected Congress people. Nancy Pelosi is their enemy. Those corporate Democrats are their enemies. And I think that what hurts this faction on the left that supported forced to vote so much is that they don't treat them as such. They don't treat them like enemies. They think that Nancy Pelosi will one day bequeath the speakership to AOC or Ilhan Omar or somebody, when in fact, Hakeem Jeffries is next in line, and he is Nancy Pelosi in male form. Nancy Pelosi 2.0 is Hakeem Jeffries. Let me read to you a quote from Hakeem. This is how he described Nancy Pelosi. You know what? I'll just play the clip. Watch this.
Necessary and majestic march toward a more perfect union. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once observed that the true measure of a leader is not how one fares in moments of comfort or convenience, but how one fares in moments of challenge and controversy. Nancy Pelosi has passed that test with flying colors over and over and over again. As a result of her tremendous leadership, during a moment of great turbulence, House Democrats ended the longest government shutdown in American history, addressed the humanitarian crisis at the border, negotiated a historic trade agreement that protected good-paying American jobs, held the president accountable.
Did you see that? Did you see that? Martin Luther King once observed that the true measure of a leader is not how one fares in moments of comfort or convenience, but how one fares in moments of challenge and controversy. Nancy Pelosi has passed that test with flying colors over and over. My question is, who do these people think they're fooling? They think we're fools, guys. They think we're idiots. Comparing Nancy Pelosi to Martin Luther King, are you insane? Are you insane? What's wrong with you? And he's the guy that would be her successor if we don't get our act together. And I have to tell you, this doesn't spell good for the Democrats at all. If they keep this up, this moderation, this preservation of the status quo, they're going to get destroyed come 2022. We don't have 2 years to wait. We don't have it. We need change now. You saw what happened in this recent election. The Democrats down ballot got destroyed. Yeah, Joe Biden won, but the Democrats down ballot got destroyed. And now the lefties are starting to lose their base, and we see it slowly but surely. You can deny it, but it's happening. And you want to know why it's happening? It's happening because they don't feel like AOC, the squad, the progressives in Congress, so a lot of those guys aren't even really progressives. They're progressive in name only, but they feel like they aren't fighting for them. And they really aren't, if you were to ask my opinion. It's one thing to agree with someone on the ideology, but it's another thing to actually go out there and fight for them and show them that you're fighting for them. You see, when you look at the Republican elected leaders, they're consistently throwing red meat to their base and satisfying their base and letting them know we're here for you and only for you. And they eat that stuff up. Now, right now, the Republican Party is fractured, and this would be a good time for the Democrats to take advantage of it, but they don't have any political instinct, so we won't see that happen. But in the same way, the Democratic Party is fractured. and it's been fractured longer than the Republican Party, but the point still stands. If AOC and the like don't get their act together and begin to forcefully create change, this is a hostile takeover, mind you, then their supporters are going to start to flee. And eventually we're going to get to the point where I hope we never do, but people are going to start asking for them to get primaried. Okay. And look, I just like to come on here and give my opinion in the way that only I know how, because there's only one of me. I don't want anyone to think that I'm nihilistic or a pessimist or anything of the like. No, the fight should continue. Don't give up because, Nancy Pelosi is reelected as speaker. Use that as fuel to go even harder and really pressure these people. Okay. Now, in hindsight, did something like force the vote come around too late? Yeah, it did. Did it kind of take a turn for the worst? Kind of, but the principle and the strategic standpoint of it, I believe, is 100% correct. Sorry, there was a brief interruption, but Marianne Williamson described it, I believe, as being politically homeless. Like that's how she feels right now. Since the squad or progressives pretty much folded, under pressure here. And I believe it's a feeling that a lot of people on the left are feeling right now. Just kind of like castaways, not really having a home because nobody seems to be representing you. And if these elected politicians want to succeed in their career and they really want to cause the change that they say that they want, and I do believe that they want, I don't think that the terms like fraud squad or whatever apply to them. I don't think they're frauds. I think that they're incredibly weak. They lack a spine, they're not leaders, Nancy Pelosi was elected or reelected the last time back in 2018, and you've had 2 years and you have nothing to show for it, and now she's back. So, look, she's 80 years old. She'll be 81 in March. She'll be in a damn wheelchair still leading the House. And I hope that's not the case, but it seems like that's where we're going. But like I said, if they don't get their act together soon, then this movement, this leaderless movement, mind you, won't be going anywhere. And I get it. It's hard it might be hard to defy these people when you get to know them, and they could be genuinely good people, but you have to, and there aren't any other Bernie Sanders. There's only one of him, and just adopt his philosophy. He's willing to be hated. He doesn't care that the media doesn't like him. He doesn't care that the corporate Democrats don't like him. He would never call Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear or suck up to anyone for that matter. And the progressives in Congress need to realize that, it's not just Republicans that you need to be fighting. I remember AOC said something like, oh, I voted for her because the Republicans or Trump are trying to undermine the election and democracy and something Trump bad. She sounds like an establishment Democrat right there. She's not corrupt. She's not an establishment Democrat, but that's what that sounds like. And you can kind of see it rubbing off on her and kind of rubbing off on everybody else. The philosophy, at least, they're still idealistically on the same wavelength as us. I just don't think they know how to go about it. And until they do learn how to go about it and really get the change that we need, it needs to be forceful, we'll be in this position for forever, and nothing will ever come from it. But I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that we do see some sort of change soon. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know when it'll be. I don't know what kind of concessions they extracted from Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure they got something, but as I said before, I don't think it'll be anything substantial. But that's really all I have for this. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Peace.